Our headliners are Ncidf. Two senior directors are with us today, Amy Bastion. Amy and I, I thought we go way back because we started these roles at the same time.
Early days.
Yeah. It's great to see you again. Welcome back to Asheville on your semi-annual trip.
Yes.
And the newest hire? The newest hire at Ncidf, Mr. Alan Younger. Welcome to Asheville. Ncidf has been a huge supporter of Venture Asheville, Mountain BizWorks, of Hatch, of the E13, of Black Wall Street, of some more stuff. I know almost countless dozens of companies now. You can see a great infographic on the website of how many grants have been written out into the region out here.
Jeff, I think you should do it in session.
$10,000 and $50,000 grants. Stick around. We purposely did this weird event earlier so that there was no time for Q&A with those founders. I want you to stick around after this presentation, ask questions of Amy and Al, and ask questions of our founders. Grab them in the hallways, grab them at co-working, make yourself known, and they're all really nice kind people who love to answer questions. Do you guys need 2 mics? 1 mic. Okay. Let's give that to Amy and Alan.
Thanks, everyone. I don't use a microphone very often, so please shout out if I do this and you can't hear me or just going on. I don't even know if I used the microphone last time, but I think especially with the blower back there, it just makes sense. So thanks for having us. I wish we could do this in 6 minutes. I think that would be really great. I was wondering if we could. It's a little bit longer, though I'll say this presentation, because we're part of this whole event, is a little bit shorter than our webinar that we do and maybe the info sessions in other places. But if you, the deck that'll be on our website within another day or two, all these slides, it'll have some additional slides. So I do recommend going to our website in the next few days, and that'll be online. And Alan, please, I know we've got your official slides, but if you see faces zoning out, please jump in. So just so you have a sense of what I'm going to cover today, as we have an introduction to Ncidf, because how many people here know about Ncidf? Okay, so, and yeah, I think quite some of it is that. Yeah, somewhat. So we'll do a brief intro, then we'll talk about micro and seed, what are they, and then we have some application tips, and then Q&A. And I'd say that if you have a question throughout, jump in. We'll keep track of time-ish. So we'd much rather answer your questions as they come up so you're not confused during the presentation. And then if we're going to get to something later, we'll just say, oh, we'll cover it later. So Ncidf, we're a small independent private foundation located in Durham, North Carolina. We are currently 7 people, but we're hiring, so we will get up to the large size of 10. And we have competitive grants and programs for entrepreneurs, and we also leverage a strategic network of partners that we also have funding for. We are not going to talk about our grants today for organizations, our Engage and Ecosystem grants, but please check out our website. So if you foster a gathering of individuals around entrepreneurship in any way, if it's pitch competition, if it's just a meetup around startups for a certain interest area or topic, we have applications all the time for Engage grants up to $5,000 that can be used for a variety of events. We will buy pizza and beer, we will pay for speakers, we will pay for event spaces, so please check that out as well. Oh, and I should say too, Ncidf has been around since, just so you have the context, since 2000 and we technically formed in 2004, but first grants, which were the seed grants, in 2006. We're not a government institution or in any way. You can think of that we have from our private endowment. So we're here today to talk about micro and seed, our $10,000 and $50,000 grants. They're grants, they're non-dilutive, don't take any equity, and they support North Carolina founders leading early stage companies and growth-oriented companies. So ideally, addressing large, rapidly growing market opportunities with some type of sustainable competitive advantage. We are industry agnostic in general, so that sustainable competitive advantage, that high growth opportunity can look very different from an ag company to a consumer product to a fintech to a biotech company. And ideally with some unique value proposition. So Again, because we're industry agnostic, this is the way the types of companies that we look for. So it could be a multi-million-dollar company. It could be that company's going to go large and employ a lot of people, so maybe 50 employees or more. Or some companies are going to go the path of VC or some type of institutional funding, but not all of the companies. So I won't read this whole list, but I would recommend checking out our website if you want to see a list of out-of-scope companies. Again, we're looking for companies with a high growth potential, and we're looking for founders who would like to grow a company as large as it can be. For some companies, some individuals, that can mean that at a certain point, someone who likes starting a company but doesn't like running a growing company, and maybe that person says, I really think this company can grow as large as it can be, even if I'm not CEO. Or I never really want to be CEO, but it's just me. And so hopefully eventually along the way, I'll step back and be the technical founder, I'll be the operational founder. So it's really about growing a company, not necessarily a product, or saying, I just want to grow the company to 3 employees and keep it there. It's really ideally a company has the ability to grow, and the founder wants to grow as large as possible. But again, right now, these companies are early stage. So this is just a list. So if you, I'd say check it out on our website. And we do have virtual office hours the whole month of August. So if you have a specific question about your company, I'd say go to ncada.org and sign up for one of those 15-minute virtual office hours and we can talk about your specific situation. I don't think this is an issue because you all are here in person. I think this is more of an issue when we have a webinar. So our companies, eligible companies must be headquartered in and plan to grow in North Carolina. There have to be founders residing in North Carolina. Again, you are here, I don't think that's an issue. And then all publicly facing materials must identify the company as a North Carolina company. We've had this before, someone's like, yes, I'm from Durham, I'm from wherever, but you go to websites in Miami. So really, and it could be that publicly identifying means that we may not have a website yet, so I understand it. It could be that your address is your home address, but it needs to be in North Carolina. Again, it's very early stage companies. Does it need to be a North Carolina LLC? No, it doesn't. Actually, to even apply, you don't have to be incorporated. But it's to receive the grant, you have to be incorporated, but you can incorporate in Delaware or some other state where. So a little bit more about micro. So we have a handy chart. It's on our website. It's also in here that'll kind of compare eligibility for micro versus seed. But in general, micro companies are still looking to validate something about their company. It could be their business model. It could be really figuring out who the target market is that they're going to sell to, and they can actually scale it. It could also be, can I produce this? I made a handmade prototype, but can I actually produce this in a cost-effective way? Again, we're industry agnostic, so it could be, I think for 2 Asheville area companies, we've given grants, and what they use some of for all the funds for. One is microgrant, almost use all the funds for a van, for basically being able to speed up their delivery and distribution of their products. So it can be, we also have companies that use it for legal, they use it for marketing, so it really is varied. But again, there still needs to be some demonstrated, yes? Can you move further on the camera for that a little bit? Oh, yes, not like that. More that way. First, right?
Yeah, I think you're in.
Okay,
yeah.
But you still need to demonstrate some proof of concept about their business or validate something about their business model. Again, companies at the stage would probably love $50,000. We say, I wouldn't know how to effectively spend it to grow their company. And at the seed stage, these are companies that have some initial proof of concept. A lot will still change, but they believe they've identified the initial target market that they can begin to scale in. Typically quite focused, even if they have future growth plans, many different markets, many potentially different offerings. They're kind of focused on an initial product offering or service offering to an initial target market. And again, ideally an innovative startup with some proven concept. And really, seed is advancing the runway for a company. So at the end of the grant period, which is roughly 6 months, the company has a path to get an extended runway, whether it's they hit certain milestones and can raise funds, whether it's they've increased revenue, whether it's they've decreased costs, or some other identified path that $50,000 can help the company get to certain milestones, and then there can see an increased path. Not this $50,000 we can spend over 6 months, but we're not sure if we can exist past that. And we will say it is somewhat of a subjective process. No one has a crystal ball exactly how things are going to turn out, but again, competitive applicants for both are able to convey how the grants will propel their company forward. We give out 30 micro grants a year, and we have two grant cycles, fall and spring. Applications for micro and seed open at the same time. We have awarded 133 grants since micro launched in spring 2018. 15 in Western North Carolina, 14 of those companies are still in business, and 8% of micro awardees have gone on to win a seed grant. Now more of those have gone on to be seed competitive, which means they've made it at least to the semi-finalist stage. Our $50,000 grants, we budget for about 12 a year, typically 6 in each cycle, and we've given out 187 since 2006, 9 in Western North Carolina, 7 of those companies are still in business. And I know I can just keep going because I know this stuff so well. Next slide. Any questions so far? Yeah. Oh, question.
Are they actually separate applications, or do you find with separate funding sources?
Good question. They are separate applications. They're similar, but they are different. So, this coming Monday, when applications go live, you'll basically select which one to start. On our website now, they're templates, so you could download them. You'll see that they are fairly similar, but not exactly the same. And you can only submit one application at micro seed, but sometimes people start one and then they realize, oh no, I'm going to actually apply the other. That's fine if you start more than one, you can only submit one. So we'll go through all of this, but this is a table that we heard regularly is helpful. So one of the things to help you figure out if you're micro seed, because if you're like, okay, I feel like I'm eligible, I feel like this might be a good fit, really extend the stage of the company. Again, micro companies tend to still demonstrate some proof of concept. Seed companies need to have traction. It does not mean revenue. It could be a partnership, it could be you have users, it could be you've got a pilot project, it could be letters of intent. That traction needs to be with your initial target market that you believe you can scale with. Now, though I sold some to my consulting clients, have some revenue, now I'm going to do this totally different thing. So just like to keep in mind. Seed, you do have to have a full-time founder if you were awarded the grant. If you have it during the grant cycle, that's fine, but there has to be a full-time founder to actually receive the funds. And ideally with micro, there's a path to that. Like if you hit certain milestones in your company, I will go full-time at some point. Some criteria around, how much revenue you have versus investment. These are not hard cutoffs. So if you're like, you know what, I really am a micro stage company, but I made $57,000 in my business last year. Again, it's not a super hard cutoff. It's kind of, if you can make the case that the grant will still have an impact, that's fine. We have had companies that have had revenue close to that. They typically are consumer product companies, software companies much less frequently have revenue, especially not at that amount. And if you're concerned about that, say, reach out about office hours too, and then we chat about your specific circumstance. And then the last one is really, there's a time frame. Again, no one has a crystal ball, but just that path to being multi-million-dollar, 50 employees or more, getting outside investment, it's probably a little bit longer for seed than it is for, for micro than it is for seed. And then, somebody asks, say, but I think I'm going to be able to raise money in a year, should I not apply for seed because it says 3 to 5 years? We're like, no, still apply. It's just that, there are varying levels of companies. So any questions there? Yes?
You mentioned that you're not interested in investing in companies with high capital expenditure requirements and a long runway. What does that mean? Do you have specific cutoff points?
We don't have specific cutoff points, but the example we give is like pharmaceutical companies where you will need, where our $50,000 or $10,000 will not really have an impact because you're going to need clinical trials and maybe you need 10, 20, 30 million. So, or if it's a company's really in the research phase and the business can't really be formed, developed, the business part can't really be addressed until, say, research is done, because our grants are not research grants. They are to move the business forward. We do have companies who are planning on, maybe have government grants and like SBIR funding or NSF funding, or they're planning on that, but not specifically for this part of our business, but we still plan on selling. Like, with our initial offering, but we also plan on applying for these grants. There's certain types of businesses that will do that. So we're really looking to understand, will our funds, our $10,000 or $50,000, have an impact on the business in and of themselves, or with the other available funds that a business may have. But again, the example we often use is pharma. But if you have a specific question about your business, just, I'd say, schedule out the hours or talk with us after. So our applications for Micro Ncidf for the fall open Monday morning as soon as I get up and turn that little link on. It's not automated. There's always someone who messages at 6 a.m. like, "Where's the application?" Not yet. Soon. And I always feel oddly accomplished when no one does that. And I eat everybody too. It's pretty sad. Anyway, so our applications will be open basically for 4 weeks. They close at 5 p.m. on the 29th. We are very, very strict about that, or that's the one thing our system does automatically. We talked about it, you can only submit one application to micro or to seed. And we expect that about 15 micro grants will be awarded in late October. We have had some cycles up to 22. That's been unusual, but at least 15, and then at least probably 6 grants, 6 seed grants in mid-November. So this is just to give a sense for potential applicants of the time frame. One of the reasons being is that you're thinking of applying and being like, oh, if I make it, and I'll be getting funding in October. It doesn't quite happen that way. It takes a little bit longer, just so you're aware of actually when these funds will be available. We expect between 140 and 190 companies to apply. It was 139 in the spring. We just never know. And then we will select about 30 finalists. And we'll let everyone know, we'll let every applicant know on 29th whether they made it to the microfinals or not. And every applicant will get at least 2 reviewers' comments, more than likely 3. So every applicant gets feedback whether or not you progress. And then we will do finalist interviews. These will be virtual. They are 35-minute interviews, roughly 10 to 15 minutes presentation, the rest of Q&A with myself, Alan, and then 2 of our new hires. TBD, and then we will let everybody know of the finalists that they received the grant on October 21st.
Is there a fee to apply?
No. And so if you win a micro grant, there'll be programming, which Alan will talk about in a second, and then the grant agreement and funds. The initial funds will be if the initial tranche of $7,500 will be dispersed sometime in December or January. Some companies decide to wait just for tax purposes, so we can be flexible with you. And then 2 months later, you'll get your second tranche payment, but then you would have finished fantastic programming, which Alan will talk to you about.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I want to be on the website, so I have to stand right here. If I stay inside the line, I'm
You
on the
got
website.
2 more feet going that way, and you're okay.
Okay, so if I slip, I'm okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the website.
Just don't keep leaning back and you're off.
Is that again?
Just don't keep leaning back and you're against the wall.
I'll lean back like this. I'm going to stay right here.
All right, there you go.
So what I want you all to know about is, well, first of all, 2 things. Go to the Ncidf website. I'm going to show you some cool things. Go there now. Pull out your devices. You go to ncidf.org, and there's some real cool things there. While you're pulling that up, think about the number 600,000. That's a good number, right? We gave away we awarded $600,000 in grants this year, directly to entrepreneurs. That's a big deal. Don't get fired. So am I going to get on the website in pictures or video? So not often, if it's going to be video. So when I say 600,000, that means we exceeded the numbers. If you saw what was on the screen a moment ago, we did give away 15 micro grants. That was great. Y'all can applaud. And then we also, y'all been sitting down a long time, right? So y'all can even stand up and and then there were 9 recipients of the seed grant. And we went over our budget, so to speak, because there were so many great businesses that are out there. So one of the things I want you to see in the website is at the very top of the website, there should be an orange bar, depending on your device and so forth. Somewhere on there, there's an orange bar. Like, look at the back real quick at Jeff. He was holding it up, and it shows an orange bar. If you click on where it says Learn More, it'll take you to learn more about the grant process. The application process opens on Monday. Even before Monday, if you'd like to make an appointment, you can do that during our office hours. So make an appointment. If you'd like to register, well, you all are here, but if there's somebody else you know that would like to register for one of the other information sessions, they can go ahead and do that. Or if you, being such a good friend and colleague, want to send that to someone else, you could do that right now. Because there's probably somebody else who would benefit from this information. And if there's somebody who can't attend in person, but they do want this information, the webinar information, and maybe it may not be on the website yet, but it'll be there soon.
Yeah, Andrew's up. I think she's back in town.
Yeah. So we had a webinar on Monday talking about the same information. So if somebody wants to see the recording, whether it's you or somebody else, they can do that. Good stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about programming. What we want to do, and what I think is really great about Ncidf is not only do we have this money, the $600,000 that we gave away in the spring, right? Not only do we have this grant money to make available directly to entrepreneurs, but we provide programming because we provide technical assistance because some of the people aren't sure what to do next, right? The first thing that we want folks to do is really understand who their customers are, their potential customers are. We have some idea, right? All these businesses in the micro program have started somewhat. They may not have started generating revenue, they may not have started engaging with potential customers yet, but they've really started moving forward in their business. And they're good stuff, right? But unfortunately, a lot of times when we start businesses, we just get feedback from those people who are around us. We don't always get feedback from people who will really buy our product or service. So we go through the process of not only understanding what that takes, but actually doing it. So while we're in the program, they're not just learning about stuff theoretically, but they're actually doing the work to make sure that it's much more likely their businesses will be successful. That's good, right? Yeah. I have to ask. Yeah. So for this 8-week program, in the first half of it, the first 4 weeks focuses on the customer discovery. It's a big deal, right? Those of you who have started businesses know how much of a big deal it is, right? So getting it right the first time is so important. So during the programming, a lot of people get feedback that says, I need to change this about my business. I need to change that. And that's okay. That's okay to make those changes. And then during the second half of the program, we focus on whatever the persons who are in the program say they want to focus on. This last spring, we focused on marketing. We focused some on social media. We focused some on pitching and fundraising. And if those are what the next cohort wants to focus on, that's what we'll focus on. But if they say, we need to focus on these other things because it's more likely that their business is going to be successful, if we bring in subject matter experts on different things, we can focus on those things. So we have a wonderful 8 weeks of programming, and it's customized based on what others need. That's great, isn't it? I feel like a celebrity daughter, Claudia. Which question do you have?
Is that program in person or online?
Great question. It was virtual right now. We would love for it to be in person. However, it'd be very challenging for people to drive from all parts of the state for an hour and a half session, right? So we meet every Tuesday and Thursday for an hour and a half, and we cover these topics. And it would be really more difficult if it was in person, unless you live in the town. So great question. Any other questions so far? All right, so let me tell you some more about the program, and you can see it on here. We want people to understand that it is a process to get where they want to be. A lot of times people don't realize that in order for me to get to where this is a multi-million-dollar company, there's some things that need to happen along the way. So we'll spend some time helping them to not only understand the theory of the roadmap, they'll create their roadmap. And then another great thing about the programming is they have access to us the whole time. So they make appointments with me or with other people from Ncidf and give checkups about how their businesses are doing. And the great thing is, that doesn't end after 8 weeks. They can still check in with us. Some of them check in via email, some of them check in person, they'll make an appointment to meet with us. And we want to make sure that they've got the support that they need moving forward. Another thing I want you to look at on Ncidf's website is if you are on the far right thing on the device, there's a menu. Click on that menu, or it looks like a hamburger, 3 lines, and you'll see that one of the choices is companies. Click on companies. When you click on companies, it shows you everybody who's ever received a grant from Ncidf. There are filters. If you wanted to just look at the micro grantees or the seed grantees, you can click on that. If you want to look at just those in Western North Carolina, you can click on that. If you want to look at certain types of industries, or you want to look at certain years, you can click on those things. And we encourage all of the grantees who are in our program to learn from those who have already been there. They're further along in their business. Their business might be very similar to their business, or it might be completely different, but they're in the same industry or same part of the state, whatever it is. And a lot of the connections have been made. Matter of fact, we're going to have lunch next Wednesday with several of our grantees. Part of that lunch is because they met virtually, right? So those of us who can meet in person can do so. We've got people in Charlotte, people coming to Charlotte to participate in that. But also so that we can give each other updates. How are things going? When you're in venture project, you're in patch, or you're in a different co-working space, a lot of times you benefit from others who are in that process as well. Same with this approach. All right, so I talked about all this stuff, didn't I? All right, so I talked about everything related to programming. So one last thing I want you to do is, while you're on the website, I want you to play with it. And what you'll find, and Jeffrey mentioned it earlier, is there's an infographic that talks about our reach and our impact. We want that to continue to grow. We need more Asheville businesses to apply for the micro and seed grants. So if you're not going to, make sure that somebody else that you know does apply. All right? Thank you.
When Alan was mentioning the $600,000 that we've given away for micro and seed so far this year, sorry. That's right. Yeah. I think I was so scared of that light showing my eyes. I'm like, no.
You don't have to be in the light, just
Okay.
close to it.
But I'm a good beauty used to do this. So we've given out $600K, as Alan mentioned, and we do track our diversity metrics. So we track non-male, non-white, and rural founders. We don't have certain micro and seed, we don't have cycles that are specifically focused, but what we have found is that having more partners, like Venture Asheville, and through our ecosystem grants and engage grants, the way we meet more organizations across the state who have connections to startup founders that Ncidf historically did not, that we just have more competitive, more diverse top of the funnel. And so it was all but one of those companies, I'm going to do math right now, 24 of the 25 companies, is that right? Yes. Were either non-male, non-white, or in a tier 1, tier 2 county. And for the one company that was not, it was veteran-led. So again, we have the same exact processes. It's just more competition and just more connection. So I want to give a big shout out to partners like Jeff and all the work he's doing at Venture Asheville. All right, so a couple other things. So just real quick, there's more steps here for seed because we actually have another stage. So we expect 130, 180 companies to apply, but then we will select semifinalists. So it's select about 24, and that's going to be at the end of September. Those semifinalists will then go on to fill out an updated application. And really the big difference is there are a couple more questions. We ask you more specifics about use of funds, so on and so forth. But also we lift the character count restrictions, which you have in the initial. And then you also will work with a graduate fellow who will check your references and have conversations with you and bring that information back to us. We will select between 10 to 12, sometimes 13 finalists. And then those finalists will, in person, this is in person again, in Durham, present on November 4th. We also offer pitch prep sessions, which are 90 minutes, and those will be virtual. And even though the final presentations are only 25 minutes, you get 90 minutes with our pitch coaches to help you prepare. And just keeping in mind, again, when funds are dispersed, so if you're filling out applications, I know when I get the 50K in December, I'm going to spend it on this, you actually don't get 50K all at once with seed, there's 4 different payments. We will work on a schedule with you so we can adapt that to your business. But typically, it's roughly over 6 months or so. And then again, companies can decide they want their first payment in this calendar year for tax purposes or in January. We don't have set programming like we do for the micro companies. Often we found that seed stage companies have done a lot of customer discovery. They may be part of Elevate or other programs, so we don't want to add more to their plate. But if individuals do not have a community like that, we've got a loose network of advisors and subject matter experts that we connect the founders to when they need it. And we also have a monthly speaker series on different topics just for NCID companies. So we often get asked about tips of like, okay, we're in person, like tell us that secret thing that's gonna really help my application stand out. And there is no secret, there really isn't. It's just some basic things. And if your company and the way that you present your company through the application are really what's gonna help you move forward. So if you haven't already, I moved too far, I recommend reviewing the application template. So even though the application doesn't open until Monday, the micro and seed template Word doc is already online. Just read it through and know that this application is going to take some time to do well. You can rush through it, you can rush through anything, but that really does tend to show. Be clear and concise. The initial applications for micro and seed have character count restrictions. If you see 2,000 characters, you do not have to write 2,000 characters. If you could answer that in like 800 and get it across, reviewers thank you in advance. So those are just max. And really, problem you're trying to solve and your solutions should be clear in the first read. And we say is the biggest tip, and that's why there's a really fancy asterisk there, are leave time to have others to give you feedback. What I'll say is if you're thinking of applying, reach out to 2 people today. Say, I plan to get you my draft. You use the Word template. Say mid-August, if you take a few days with it, can I get it back on say like August 20th with your comments? Get on someone's schedule now. It's lovely weather in the summer. It's actually very hot. But people may take vacations. So if you reach out to somebody August 28th at 11 p.m. say, oh, can you read my application? They may not have time. And then you also won't have time to take their feedback. And the reason we say this is you're very close to your business. To be objective and think, how am I presenting my business and answering these questions that puts my business in the best light? Because you can have, the company that's the right stage, you could have all the eligibility criteria, you could have a great team, even if you're a solo founder. But if you don't convey that in the application, that's all we have initially, or if it's confusing or kind of rambles, or it's just, we're just not really sure sometimes what companies do. So that can really kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So having someone who will give you objective feedback, I'd say is the #1 recommendation that I have. Yeah, so you see that every question matters in the application, but one of the things that we sure want to come across is that we want to understand your team. And solo founders, sometimes team is really scary. Oh, I shouldn't apply. They're saying team all the time. Team can mean, if you're part of a co-working space. It can mean if you're part of a networking group. It can mean if you're part of some accelerator. It's basically who or what communities are supporting you on your journey at this stage. It could be paid advisors, and maybe it is that you've got co-founders, and that's great. But we think of basically who do you have to support you on your journey at this point. We just want to understand what you've been doing to move your business forward. You may have signs of market traction for both micro or seed, but definitely you should be taking steps to move your business forward in some way. And then impact of the grant, we really want to understand why now. Why is it that the 10K or 50K is if this is a really good time for your business, and what will it help your company achieve to move the company forward? So just real quick, the review team, people like me and Adeline, people like Jeff. Jeff has been reviewing for us for quite a while. We actually have, I should have counted, we have a number of reviewers in the area. Some who Jeff has connected us with, through some Elevate mentors, are reviewers. I'm actually having 8 a.m. tomorrow. And then volunteer reviewers from across the state. So it's matter of. We haven't decided. What we say is that these are individuals who have been vetted by us, you understand that giving feedback as part of the review process, and that they constructive feedback, helpful feedback to every applicant. They may not have the subject matter expertise of your business, but they've given feedback to startups before. They may have run a startup before, so they should be able to give you some type of constructive criticism. Constructive advice. And so this is what I said, and also it's not uncommon, especially if you advance to the seed semifinals where you get between 10 to 12 reviews. This can be conflicting feedback. Not every reviewer agrees. This is a subjective process, 100%. So, that can be frustrating to some applicants. We say look for themes, or maybe one founder will focus more on the actual application, what was good about it. Someone may say, hey, actually I have a lot of contacts for you. So even if you don't advance, you may get an email, you may get suggestions of funding, you may get knowledge of maybe an accelerator or some incubator that you weren't aware of. And we do tell reviewers that you don't have to give your contact info, but if you want, go ahead. So that's really it. Alan's already covered all of this. He took you to our website, told you to click on that orange bar. That has all the resources. And then the link will be live on that site.
We've got a few minutes for questions. I'll walk around the microphone. You're going to lower behind you.
Thanks. What if you have another full-time business that
So if that business is something you're planning to continue full-time on and not being full-time at some point on the startup, that's not going to reflect well. We're looking for founders who are, the startup, for the idea that they're applying for, is what they believe can be big. By being big, it's going to take their time and dedication. So it's, it could be like, hey, I have another full-time job right now because I'm not applying a micro, but my goal is that if I can hit these milestones with a 10K grant, then maybe in the next 6 months to a year, I'm going to go full-time on this.
What if it's like the team is full-time? What if there's multiple founders?
So we do have, so there needs to be at least one full-time founder. So it's not uncommon where initial co-founders, some may say, I'm never going to be full-time on this, and that's fine. But there needs to be at least one full-time founder or one founder who's planning on going full-time for the micro grant. Yeah, but we definitely see that with co-founders saying, I'll always be involved, but this is, my separate business is my full-time job.
Yeah.
Just curious if you support teenage entrepreneurs, is there an age limit?
No, there actually isn't an age limit. As long as the business can be incorporated and bank accounts can be created. We've definitely had teenage applicants before. And though I think our youngest grantee was just graduated or in college. We've got some that are in college, but.
Okay, so you're kind of implying that it's okay to fill out the grant form with the anticipation of going full-time. So, we have a team that's currently focused on this full-time this summer. One of them is a student, and she graduates in May. She would join, but she's also in Massachusetts. So there's kind of a distributed team. Is that?
So for, are you thinking seed or micro or just kind of in general?
I think seed makes more sense.
So for seed, there would need to be a full-time founder living in North Carolina if the grant is awarded. So, we award the grant or before the grant agreement is signed. So, during the process, if there were no full-time founders, but we would definitely find out who's the founder who's planning on going full-time, and that founder needs to be in North Carolina. There are distributed teams, so if there's going to be a founder living in a different state, we have companies now with full-time founders in North Carolina that have full or part-time founders in other states.
Next question?
You mentioned earlier, at least the way I heard it, you don't need to be incorporated, but just now you answered you.
To apply, you do not need to be. But if you were to receive the grant, because it's for your business, not for an individual, so we actually write the grant to the business, we'll need your EIN number. Just get confused with. And then also, the funds are wired to a business bank account, so you're going to need to be incorporated. But We have some, it's typically more micro companies that don't incorporate until they get notification that they've won the micro grant. So, does that answer your question?
Well, I have a non-incorporated entity that has a EIN that's federally recognized, but it's not a corporation.
As long as it's maybe an LLC or something along those lines, we can talk about it, yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Another one.
Let's go here.
Surprise,
Excuse my confusion, but I just wanted to be clear. Say I have the application already. Are you saying that I could put it in for review before I actually submit the application?
Oh, not by staff. We're just saying to find someone else in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you for, and then also Alan was talking about our list of companies on our website. So yes, I mean, you can have other people, it doesn't have to be an NCAD company review your application, but we do tell all of our grant recipients that at some point someone may contact you through LinkedIn or through email or track you down at your business and say, hi, I'm thinking of applying, you want a grant? You know, give me your feedback, give me your tips or suggestions. So I'm not saying stalk our past grant recipients, but there are a number of them in the area. So, you know, if you, but if you can do the research, find a company, again, it could be Western North Carolina, or maybe it's a similar type of business in a different part of the state. It is not uncommon for these founders to get contacted around this time, about a month or so. So that's what we suggest. And then we've got one actually.
Hey there, first of all, I did stick out for a minute at the beginning, please just say, if you already said this, but I'm curious what your support and accountability infrastructure looks like after the grant. I assume there's some mentorship or.
So for micro, you hear about, I don't know if you heard Alan talking about the micro programming. For micro, there's 7 to 8 weeks of programming, which this will run from late November to.
After Thanksgiving through.
Yeah, and with the break for the holidays.
Early February.
And we have availability of staff to meet with the micro grantees. For seed, we have regular check-in meetings. But there is reporting back in terms of how to use the funds against how you said you were going to use the funds, how did you achieve the milestones. And I should say one thing, you're not locked in to using the funds in the way that you put in your application. How your company may need to use the funds next February is very different than what you're envisioning as you're filling out the application now. So it is not uncommon at all for companies to, between the initial application and then the interview stage, or proceed between the initial application, semifinals and finals, for the use of funds to change. And even after you receive the grant, we have a whole process to submit a change the fund request, because we never want a business to spend the funds in a time frame or for use that's not beneficial to the business. So, and then we do ask companies for at least 5 years, require, I should say, it's in the grant agreement for companies for 5 years after the felt annual survey, which is how we track funds raised, revenue, and number of employees. Oh, and it's a little cheesy. It is cheesy. We say that, you know, once you're out of your grant period for micro seed, and we say, you know, what's an NCID company? Always an NCID company. So it's not uncommon that someone will reach out who got a grant a number of years ago and say, I'm writing out a fundraise, can we just come by and practice our pitch? It really depends on the companies, because some companies already have those networks or built them, and we don't need to fill that gap for them, but we're always open. And then also, we have two, sorry Naya, I made just your camera out, but we've got 2 of our summer interns. There's Naya and Kirsty. And then 2 graduate fellows this summer have worked on projects for companies. And you guys have done more projects than past interns and fellows. So from financial modeling to market research. So we make that available to any past grant recipient. We just traditionally found that those who got the grant more recently are the ones who are more in touch with us. But you're always an NCAD company.
Hey there, hey Amy, yeah, Carol here, good to see everybody. More, kind of a question I just noticed when I looked at Western North Carolina.
Oh, you can ask Ed how to run a microgrant.
That's right. So
Yes, I'm sorry, he's offering right now, that's what, he's saying he'll review your microgrant. Yeah.
We are such big fans of Ncidf. It's amazing. We went through fall 2021. And so stalk us on LinkedIn, reach out to us. We're happy to help in any way. So, but I did notice that we're not showing up in Western North Carolina just yet on the microgrant.
Oh, okay, I will let Andrea know.
So, but yes, amazing program.
What's the name? Edison Marks? Okay, I will find out what's going on, thank you. And we do a monthly speaker series just for our companies, and Edison Marks actually gave a talk back in June. Yeah.
What do you guys do?
We use behavioral science to help small businesses become more secure. So, folks that are starting out, reach out to us too. We're happy to help out and make sure that things are lined up and properly secure from the cyber perspective.
And we encourage you to follow us, Ncidf, on LinkedIn and Facebook. A couple weeks ago, on Friday, every Friday, we feature one of our founders. We feature Edison Marks. Is that 2 weeks ago?
It was very recent. Yeah.
Second row, come in.
Speak loudly. I can do that.
But Sean makes me take the microphone.
I'm curious, I know you said that 8% of the micro grants apply and get the seed grant. I'm curious how long between you recommend?
It really depends on the company. So we say, ideally, micro grantees who are able to validate what we're looking to validate. Not every company is going to. And we've had companies actually during the grant cycle say, actually, you know what? Thank you for the funds. I now realize this is not the idea that I want to spend the next 10 years of my life on, but they'll probably do something else in the future. So we say 1 to 4 cycles within 2 years. And we've had companies win it the next cycle. We've had companies, in the fall, we had a grant recipient from the inaugural cohort in spring 2018 win a seed grant in the fall, but we also had 2 companies that have just gone through the micro-programming the cohort before. It just really depends per company, but for us, we're like, the company's going to be competitive. We say within 2 years. That's what we're thinking. Yeah, and then if you're on the fence, if you're a company who's like, oh, we're kind of straddling that line between micro and seed, and if you want to go for seed, we're not it's up to you. You're the founder of the business. You're running it. We're not going to say you have to apply this grant together, but we give out more micro grants than seed grants. Just letting you know, your chances are almost double to get the micro grant. It's between 10 to 11% of micro applicants get the micro grant, and 5 to 6% of seed grants get seed grants. So again, we're not pushing you in any way, but just wanting to make sure you knew the probabilities.
Any last questions? Any final thoughts? If not, thank you so much, Amy, Alan, Tyler, and Tracy, for coming all the way to Nashville.